Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg here in Las Vegas. I'm going to lead it off, Hank. That was a pretty ugly weekend for me. I know a lot of people out there suffered with it. There were a lot of bad selections, bad beats, bad play calls. You know, just one of those things. The stars all aligned, and they didn't align in my favor for sure. How was your weekend?
Well, I had a good Saturday, but Sunday was horrible. I didn't have a winter Sunday. I never had a day like that, and I can't remember. I just had 4 selections, and it was a bad day for a lot of quarterbacks that I found out about. I should have known better on the Chargers because I never trust Phillip Rivers. And he didn't have a great game the week before against the Raiders. And yesterday he was on his way to pulling a game away and threw a horrible interception that just totally turned that game around. And then just handed a game to Denver, which is been a terrible road team all year. They had that game in their pocket. They were ahead by 12. And and they were on their way to another score, and he throws a flat pass that just went right in the hands of a guy who ran it the other way for a score. That was the end of the Chargers. And I got to tell you something. That's why I really wasn't on the Chargers bandwagon, because I don't think Phillip Rivers is a clutch player. I just don't. He finds ways to throw away games. And I think that's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame.
You know, I can't disagree with you. I mean, going back over the years, well, not even only Rivers, but the whole franchise. There's been years when they had the best players, and they should have been to the Super Bowl or even won the Super Bowl. It's just something about that team and Rivers. Unbelievable that the Broncos with Vance Joseph actually pick up a win. That was incredible. There were so many.
He wasn't the only quarterback who folded yesterday. Cam Newton didn't have a good game. Riverboat Ron goes for a 2-point conversion in a game where they could have gotten into overtime against Detroit, where they probably would have won, and instead they get down there and they're on the road, and so he goes for 2, and Cam throws a horrible pass where he has the guy wide open in the end zone, and they lose the game. I'll tell you, the quarterback for Minnesota, in the second half, his defense really took the game over, and they had opportunities to score, and he was terrible. He just couldn't throw a good pass under pressure. He has 2 great receivers, and he just had a lousy game against, granted, a very good defense. But still, their defense had shut down the Bears' offense in the second half and had gotten a couple of turnovers and put them in a good position, and he couldn't cash in. You can't depend on that guy. They're not going anywhere with him. And and right now the Bears look like they're taking over that division. And the only guy you can depend on, you can depend on the 2 quarterbacks who are playing tonight. But I'll tell you something. The Saints are amazing right now. And by the way, the Philadelphia quarterback, they kept saying, "Oh, he's having a good year." He threw 3 interceptions yesterday. They couldn't put points on the board against the Saints, and they were kind of a wise guy play yesterday.
Hank, I want to ask you about Philadelphia specifically. Last year they win the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, their defense gave up a ton of yards, but they still won the game. And Peterson got a lot of credit for the way he coached and the way they won. But, offensive and defensive coordinators have a lot to do with what happens. And they lost theirs. And they look like, they basically look like they're lost. they do not resemble at all what they looked like a year ago. And the biggest change has been their offensive and defensive coordinator.
No, the defensive coordinator is still there. It's Jim Schwartz.
Well, that's true. The offensive coordinator is in Indianapolis, who, by the way, looks very good. And Andrew Luck is playing as good as anybody except Drew Brees. He's absolutely amazing.
Well, yesterday was the first time he beat a team with a winning record, and that was Minnesota, or Tennessee rather. And Tennessee loses their quarterback for a long time, so that does it for them. But the thing that surprised me was the Tennessee defense really played a bad game yesterday, and then they had been playing so well. I mean, here's a team that beat New England and then shut down Brady, and comes in after beating Dallas, who has now won 2 games in a row, and just comes in and plays a totally flat game against a team that they should have been up for, who had beaten them 10 straight times.
Yeah, this is. It was a weird day. It was almost like it was. I don't know. It was a full moon or something. I don't know. It's crazy. The Redskins.
The Redskins are toast.
Yeah.
You know, they've lost their quarterback. Although everybody's saying, well, this guy, the backup, is really good. Well, we'll see, because they play Dallas, and all of a sudden Dallas has figured it all out, that they've got to put the ball in Ezekiel's hands and not try to force the passing game. And they played for the field goal at the end instead of trying to win the game with a touchdown. And they had to win it with a 52-yard field goal. If they missed that field goal, they'd be screaming for that coach's head again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter what Garrett does. Jerry's going to stick with him, at least through the year.
Well, if they make the playoffs and they win a playoff game, he's not going anywhere either.
True.
They may change the offensive coordinator.
Here's one. The Washington Redskins are interviewing different quarterbacks to bring them in. One of them is, I can't believe this name is being mentioned again to come back, Mark Sanchez. That's absolutely incredible to me. But
well, there's nobody out there now, except Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, well, I don't think he'll ever play in the league. I don't think anybody will sign him. I doubt that's ever going to happen. Maybe, I mean, they possibly should, but it doesn't seem to happen. He's been gone for years now. Anyway, the big game tonight, it moved from Mexico City, where they had a bad field, perfect conditions in L.A. except for the air quality. It should be a rock'em sock'em offensive game, that's for sure. This is really great TV. But you know, the one thing that we see in the league is there are a lot of very, very bad teams, and there's a lot of very, very bad coaching decisions. It's just hard to find quality people to fill spots, to fill offensive, defensive coordinators, head coaching positions. And one thing that we have a confirmation that Condoleezza Rice will not be the head coach of the Browns. I thought that was funny. I was all over Twitter yesterday. But you can't believe everything you read on Twitter. We could have had. It could have been different, a lot different, but it is what it is.
This game tonight is the highest point total in the history of NFL totals.
Yeah, it is. It definitely. Yesterday we had some games that looked like they should have gone over, but didn't. I mean, the New Orleans game, they score 48 points. It still stays under because Philadelphia doesn't do anything. They look absolutely horrible. The Giants started out real slow, and then they brought in Jameis Winston, and that made a big difference, and they made a game out of it. one thing about Fitzmagic, he can be a nightmare, or he can light it up for you.
Well, the Giants don't have bad defensive players, and that was one game that kind of figured because they're just a bad team. There's a team that put up 500 yards in offense and gave away the game with turnovers the week before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, college basketball, pro basketball, it's all going on. And we've got a lot of tournaments.
A lot going on in college basketball. There's a whole bunch of tournaments that start today, and real good ones. You've got the Cayman Islands Classic started this morning. Creighton is playing Boise later on today. The Maui Invitational is the one. Auburn is there. They can score a bunch of points. They're playing Xavier. Duke is playing San Diego State. Gonzaga is playing Illinois. Arizona's there against Iowa State. So, I mean, those are some great matchups.
Oh, awesome.
And then you've got the Legends Classic in Brooklyn, Temple, and St. John's, California, and VCU. The Hall of Fame Classic in Kansas City. Southern Cal is there. They play Texas Tech today. The MGM resorts right here in Las Vegas, St. Mary's, Utah State, Arizona State, and Mississippi State. I mean, there's some really good basketball going on starting today. And then tomorrow, Notre Dame plays Duquesne. You got UNLV. I don't know how good they are. I spent the day Saturday with Tarkanian's longtime assistant. We were betting horses together, and we knew all kinds of college coaches in common. He had come from the East Coast, and he told me some great stories about when he and Tark were coaching together. And we had a good day playing the horses. The Cancun Challenge, SMU Bradley. It's going to be a great week of college basketball.
I tell you, if you're a basketball junkie, this is a great week to get your fix. That's for sure.
He was telling me about how he ran a basketball camp with Dave Bing. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida yesterday who told me, that they have this luncheon that I used to go to in Boca Raton where they honor a bunch of old New York basketball guys, and Dave Bing is their honoree this year. So I'll have to get a hold of this stuff and tell him about Dave Bing. He may want to go. And that's a great event. They have all kinds of New York basketball legends who show up to over 100 guys for this luncheon.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, we're going to have a busy week, Scott. We're going to have a big week out there handicapping all this basketball stuff. And, of course, we're getting down to the point where we're going to start talking about some football situations.
Well, I think what's interesting is the way the East has turned around, and now Dallas is really holding the cards. I mean, they play Washington on Thursday, and they should beat Washington right now. Dallas's defense is pretty good, and when they're healthy, and Prescott is playing much smarter ball the last couple of games, and they've got Cooper, who can still open up an offense for him. And Washington is really beat up. So that should be a win for Dallas this week. And, of course, next week it gets a little tougher for them. But if they can get a little bit of cushion, they become the favorite to win that division, because Philadelphia is certainly not going anywhere. And Washington is all banged up. And the Giants, the Giants keep winning, they might have a shot.
I like the Giants. I think the Giants it's going to come down to the Giants and Dallas. It just looks like they're both heading in the right direction at the moment.
Giants have a long way to go to catch up. They only have a couple of wins.
Yeah, they're behind the 8 ball at the moment. There's no question. But they're gonna have to turn it on, keep it. Well, they got it turned on, but they got to keep it turned on. Atlanta, man, are they a disappointment? And Jacksonville, they led that whole game and they blew it at the end. That was an incredible loss for them.
Well, you know something? There's another quarterback who had a terrible game. You know, fat face, you know, as I like to call him, Roethlisberger.
He was horrible.
He had 3 interceptions. He threw a couple of horrible picks in that game.
He was horrible. They did not deserve to win that game. They got very fortunate. But Jacksonville's playing horrible. I think it's had 7 straight losses.
Well, Jacksonville keeps finding ways to lose, and basically because they don't have any confidence in their quarterback. And that's what happened in the second half. They were in a position to win the game, and they kept handing the ball off, and really tried to play with a little bit of a lead. And you can't do that against the Steelers because as bad as Roethlisberger was playing, you just can't keep giving them the ball and expect to shut them down. And that's what happened in that game. And it was a typical Jacksonville losing effort. No confidence in that quarterback. And how can you have confidence in Bortles? So, you know, that's the weakness in that Jacksonville team, and that's why you can't put any faith in them.
Well, they've had an opportunity to make changes at that position for years, and they haven't done it. So they're getting what they deserve in that case. Not that they.
Well, but you know, Ben had a really bad game, and Newton didn't have a great game for Carolina. You know, there was just one stinker after another.
Yeah.
And by the way, Carolina, I mean, losing to Detroit the way they did, I mean, that was not a good game for them. Here's a team that had come after their last 5 losses, had come back strong and won the following week each time. And their defense didn't play that great against Detroit. Detroit really doesn't have a great running game, and Stafford had been sacked 16 times in the last 2 games, and they had not been playing well.
It's going to be an interesting game on Thursday. You got Chicago at Detroit. Chicago's defense is just playing monster at the moment. That Khalil Mack is he's a game breaker, that guy. They're a very physical, they remind me of the old Chicago Bears. Very physical, very tough. Yep, it's getting them. You know, Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and we've got a big day on Thanksgiving. We'll pick this up on Wednesday, cover the college and pro games on that day, and all the basketball throughout the week and the tournaments. It's going to be a good week. I'm excited about it. We'll do one more podcast on Wednesday and take the weekend off, and come back next Monday.
Well, if you want to watch an amazing basketball team at 5:00 East Coast, I guess it's 5:00 East Coast time, or 2:00 this afternoon. Duke is playing San Diego State, and you want to take a look at that Duke team. They're pretty amazing.
I've seen them a couple times. Zion Williamson is from another planet, and Duke is just loaded. I don't know if anybody will ever beat them, but you can always have a bad game. I guess anything's possible. So, Hank, thank you much for today. Your picks, my picks, are up at jimfeist.com. Go there, check out the videos, the audios, the articles, and be sure to jump on the plays. We had a bad week, but we will bounce back. And I guarantee you we'll do a whole lot better this coming week. Thanks, Hank. Appreciate it.
Boy, you sound like Joe Namath.
That's very funny. Have a good one, Hank.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.